Hey guys, AJ here. So, you just pulled your dream waifu, or whoever it was that you had to get, but now the question is, who do you actually combine her with? Who should be part of your team? How do you go about combat in general? And that's what I'll try to explain to you a little bit in this video. Before we get into the team building, there are two aspects about the team building in this game that you should know about that I cannot cover in this video because it would be too much for just one little video. And those are elemental resonance and elemental reactions. If you go into your party setup, at the top right corner you have a menu that says elemental resonance. Elemental resonance is basically a buff that applies to your entire team if you have two or more of any element in your party. These buffs are impactful, but I wouldn't go so far as saying that you have to build your team around them. Nevertheless, you should go through the list at least once to get an idea of what each of these elemental resonances do, and just consider them when you're finalizing your team later on. The next point are elemental reactions, and here I'll just keep it short and say all elemental reactions are good. They all work a little bit differently. Some do more damage. Some do less damage, but they bring a debuff with them. So what I think you should do in the beginning is just experiment around with them a little bit, see what feels good, see what looks cool, and just choose whatever you like. Also, you don't need to think like you're missing out if you're going for an electro-cryo comp for now over an electro-pyro comp, because later down the road, all it will take you is to go up to your party setup, switch out Kaya for Xiangling, and you'll be good to go. Yes, you will not have all of these units built right at the start, but over time, you will. Okay, so now we'll get into the actual team building part. The easiest way to get a grip on team building in this game is to think of units in terms of different roles that they fill within your team. There are about 4 main roles that each character can fit. Most characters fit more than one role alone, which means that you can play around with them and build them in different ways. But the 4 roles are, you have a main carry. The main carry is the unit that you'll be using most of the time when you're not doing something else temporarily with any of the other 3. It's the one unit that you build the rest of your team around, with the rest of the team mostly being there to help that one unit out in doing its job. The other 3 are there to deal extra damage on the side, to set things up for your carry, to keep him alive, to allow him to trigger elemental reactions, or support him in other ways. Then you have a secondary carry. That is usually a unit that deals good damage, but requires only little field time, because most of the field time is already occupied by your main carry. These are usually units that have either great burst potential, or they are able to deal consistent damage over time, even when they're not on the field. Then you have the enabler. What the enabler does is it brings in another element that is not matched by any of your carry units into your party for your carries to trigger elemental reactions off of that new element for even more damage. These are usually units that have a reliable and consistent way of applying their certain element to enemies, and again, ideally without requiring much field time. The last role, which is rather broad in definition, is the support. The support unit, basically whatever helps the rest of your team out in various ways, can be a support. That can be anything from heals, shields, auras, crowd control, anything that helps the rest of your team do their job better. This template, 1 main carry, 1 secondary carry, 1 enabler, and 1 support, is definitely not something that you absolutely have to follow. At the end of the day, you can do whatever the hell you want. It's a PvE game, nobody's watching, and you need to have fun. All I'm saying is that this template is quite easy to follow, easy to understand, gives you a nice entry into the game, and can carry you all the way to endgame. Now that we know of these different roles, you're still left with the question of which role your specific unit fits best. And there are a few simple questions that you can ask yourself that help you determine which of these roles fits them best. So, let's say you're trying to find out if the unit you have in front of you fits into the role of a main carry. We have an example here, Razor, And the question you gotta be asking yourself is there any compelling reason for me to keep this unit out on the field over any of my other 3 units at any given time? Well, how do you find out if that's the case? Well, you look at the character's skill kit. So you can go through their skill kit, their constellations, you see what's written there. You just go through the skills, and you try to figure out how do they want me to play this unit. I'm going to cut it short here. For Razor, the answer to this question is a big fat yes. For one, his E gives him bonus energy recharge. He can stack this bonus energy recharge up to 3 times. Energy recharge, if you didn't already know, you only get the maximum out of energy recharge if that unit is on the field. If it's not on the field, then any energy you're getting is cut in, let's say, half. I don't know the exact value, but you're not getting the full amount that you would be getting if you had the character out on the field. The next thing is his ultimate. Now his ultimate has a duration, so you activate it, and then for 15 seconds what happens is that Wolf joins you in battle, and obviously if you want to make the most use of that ultimate, you'd have to be having him out on the field for the full 15 seconds. One more reason why you would be doing that, and we can try this right here, so if I pop this ultimate, I can start auto-attacking, that's all great, but if I swap out to Fischl and swap back in, that Wolf is gone. So basically you just wasted the remaining duration of that skill and flushed all the energy it cost down the toilet. This unit pretty clearly communicates to you that it wants to be on the field for most of the time. Then we have the secondary carry. The question you gotta ask yourself here is, does this unit deal good damage even if they're not on the field all the time? Or the alternative question is, does this unit have good burst potential? So in that case, you would be swapping into the unit, get your burst off, and swap out again while you're waiting for the cooldowns to come back up. Prime example for that currently is Fischl. Why is Fischl so great at that job? Because you can place her Raven, you can swap to a different character, and the Raven stays on the field, constantly attacking enemies. She also has some burst potential in the form of her Q, her ultimate, so she delivers both good burst and sustained damage for very little field time. Then we have the enabler. The question here is, does this unit have a reliable, consistent way of applying their certain element to enemies? And if they want to be excellent at their job, can they do so over time, even if they're not in the field? One prime example for that is Kaya, because you can press his ultimate, you'll get those icicles around you that apply cryo constantly, and you can swap to other characters without those icicles disappearing. This makes him a perfect enabler for anything that's related to cryo elemental reactions. Another popular enabler is Xiangling. For her, it's basically the same as with Kaya. You can press her Q, she'll do this fire tornado that constantly applies pyro to the enemies surrounding you, even if you swap her out later on. And then the last slot you gotta think about is the support. The only question you have to ask yourself here is, does this unit assist the rest of your team in any way? So this really could be anyone that does anything remotely useful. It could be Barbara healing your team. It could be Venti with his massive black hole thingy. It could be Noel for shields, or the shield of any Earth unit for that matter. For example, if you look at Razor or Keqing, not a single line anywhere in their entire kit does anything for your team. Nothing. They are very selfish units. All they want to do is be in the spotlight and be dealing damage to enemies. Whereas if you take a look at Sucrose, her kit is packed with support for your team. Her passive abilities give elemental mastery to the entirety of your team. Both her E and Q have that mini suction effect to them, where you can group up monsters to make it easier for your carries to finish them off. Her ultimate basically stun locks all enemies in range that don't have a shield up for like 6 seconds up in the air where they can't do anything. She's just a very offensive, supportive, useful to have unit and fits this role perfectly. If you follow this set of questions, you should be able to roughly categorize any one unit that you're looking at into one of these 4 roles. As I said before, most of them usually fit more than just one slot. An exception to that would be Razor, for example. He cannot be played as anything else, really, other than a main carry, but for most other units you'll have at least 2 options. Anyway, I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, as always, leave it down in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe if it helped you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.